Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Audrey, and yeah, I'm alive. And as you can see, I'm struggling with some foundation, which means that it is time for another speed build. As you remember from my video a whole 6 months ago, I mentioned wanting to recreate the Summerdream household because the original lot for this house has a ton of terrain issues that I was not really going to bother to try to work around, and instead I just decided to make the entire house from scratch. So that's what we're doing today. This is obviously for my Veronaville Let's Play on this channel, and just wanted to make something really nice for that. But yeah, this is going to be kind of a little bit of a chattier Let's Play, so feel free to, get your coffee, kind of settle down a little bit. It's this building took forever to make, for one, and for two, I feel like you and I got a lot to catch up on. You're probably wondering where I've been for the last 6 months. I didn't really intend to fall off the face of the earth, but life sometimes has a funny way of working out. We'll kind of get to that. I'll give you kind of a little bit of a life update and all that, but right now, as you can see, I am trying to recreate the floor plan for this house, just kind of trying to build everything or rebuild everything from scratch. I actually had a picture of the Summerdream Mansion, a bunch of screenshots I had pulled up, just kind of detailing what the exact dimensions of the house were, how each wall kind of worked out, how each of like the little buttresses, the bits that kind of stick out on the top, how they kind of situated themselves. So right now I'm just trying to recreate the floor plan. The layout of this house is kind of insane. If you've seen it before, there's just so many different little asymmetrical rooms and corridors and bits that kind of stick out. As you can see, I'm really struggling with the roof right now. Roofs in this game are kind of my enemy. I feel like I can really nail everything else when it comes to building in The Sims 2, but roofing, ooh, she and I are not friends, let's just say. And I did end up changing a little bit in the back just out of my own personal preference. And that also ended up being a little bit of a nightmare. I actually had to go back and do it a couple times off camera just to make it look somewhat decent and cohesive. As you can see, there are these diagonal corners, and I am making them into straight corners just so the roofs will go where I want them to go. Boy, can you believe I used to want to be an architect? Partially because of this game. Yeah, no, I'm glad I didn't really go down that path. But anyway, I was actually, when I'm talking about the back of this house, because I feel like for the Summer Dreams, that's kind of the main feature, is there's actually no front door, which I later changed because not having a front door really bugged me. But instead, all the Sims kind of exit through either the sides or the back, and the back itself is staged to look like a grand play, kind of like the Globe Theater itself, but I actually took inspiration from something a little more local to me. So if you don't know, I actually live in the Pacific Northwestern region of the United States, specifically in the state called Oregon. And in Oregon, there's a town called Ashland, which is kind of on the border of Oregon and California. And every year in Ashland, they actually host a Shakespeare festival, and it's a really cool event. I've never been. I want to make plans one year to go see it with my wife, which, oh yeah, that is another thing we'll get into. I got married in the last 6 months. We'll talk about that as well. But yeah, no, I want to go see it. Actually, this year, fittingly enough, they are putting on a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which obviously is what the Summer Dream family is based off of. A couple years ago, my wife and I actually saw a ballet production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I feel like it would be so cool to actually see it in the flesh at this festival. But where I'm going with this is, at the Ashland Shakespeare Festival, there is a stage called the Allen Elizabethan Theater, and it was kind of my inspiration for at least the back layout of the Summer Dream house. And I am going to put on a little bit of my Sims tin hat here and kind of have a little game theory moment, which is I would not be 100% surprised if the Allen Elizabethan Theater was actually the inspiration for the Sims devs when they were making the Summer Dream house. I'll put up a little picture of it so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, but it is almost like a one-to-one recreation. And so I just kind of took that inspiration and took it a little bit further. The development team for The Sims 2 I know are based out of California, and since there were some real Shakespeare heads on the team when they were making this game, like Jonathan Knight, for example, I think the chances of them actually going to this Oregon Shakespeare Festival are low, but not exactly zero. So that's kind of my little prediction here, but yeah. definitely this is a huge inspiration for how the back of the house looked like. It's a gorgeous theater. Like I said, I'll post a little photo of it, but you know, I would definitely recommend looking it up. It's just really cool looking and was kind of a main inspiration for the architecture for this build. So whenever I build, I kind of like to stop and check and see if what I'm doing actually looks good, even when it's a recreation and I'm obviously basing it off of something else. Right now I just have the flat basic stucco walls with the wooden timbers and no kind of cross paneling. I'm just going to go through and add that later, just depending on what I think looks good. And right now I am going to actually carve a little bit out of the house, and we're going to actually make a porch because, as I mentioned, I got a little sick of not having a front door in the Summerdream house. It takes forever for these stupid fairies to go anywhere, especially since I know Oberon and Titania are incredibly lazy, so they just walk so slow, and I know they're immortal, so they probably don't feel like they need to be anywhere fast, but they do have jobs and carpools to catch, and I was not loving how long it takes for them to do literally anything, but that's besides the point. So at this point too, I actually kind of went and I took a look at how other people kind of changed the layout of the Summerdream house because I was struggling a little bit. I knew what I wanted, which was like an entry room and then maybe like a parlor or something on the side. And then of course they're like living room slash recreation room. But I was struggling a little bit, so I actually ended up going to other layouts to look for some pointers. So I wanted to give a shout out here to some of the people I was looking at, like Anhedonic Worm, Plumtails, and Lido Mills. All of them have done some really wonderful things with the layouts of this house, and I would have been struggling for a few more hours without them, so really, really appreciate that. So I definitely cannot recommend their builds enough. And I'll be honest, I probably would have used Anhedonic Worm's makeover for this game, just in general, just because I love it so much. It's so gorgeous and detailed, but the problem is, of course, it's a little too detailed for what I need for a Let's Play. Everything does have to be just a little more simple, because I'm already using up so much of my computer's memory for recording that the game would continuously freak out and lag and flash pink every 2 seconds I tried playing it, if I had something that was just a little more crazy. But definitely, this was a huge inspiration for me, so definitely go check out their build. I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's just absolutely stunning. But as you can see here, I'm placing some windows down now. That was actually a huge help for determining like my own layout of this house, because I really, really wanted to make sure that everything at least looked nice from the outside, and then I would just kind of build the rooms around that, depending on what would be practical. For example, like I wouldn't put a shower right in front of an open window, I think. I might have done that later. We'll see. But yeah, really tried to go for a symmetrical look. I wanted to kind of carve out a couple of hallways, just something that made a little more sense or was a little more intuitive for routing for my Sims, because routing is another huge issue with this household normally. I do not understand what EA was thinking if they ever actually playtested this household, but it's a little bit of a nightmare. So I ended up actually having like a little foyer, little entry room, and a parlor in the back that kind of leads out to the big stage backyard, which I feel like is fitting for the Summerdreams and all their parties that they love to throw. And then on the side, I'm gonna have the classic Summerdream living room with hopefully a few more things to do. I remember their living room, despite being kind of a party house, which is kind of what they're known for, their living room situation was a little sad from what I remembered. So changed that up a little bit, added a downstairs, or moved the downstairs bathroom around a little bit, just so they have kind of a little more space in the front for this lovely foyer. I also separated the kitchen and dining rooms because Sims really do not like big rooms, I've noticed. Despite how much space they need to get around, they really hate it. They're such stupid little creatures sometimes. I love them dearly, but oh my goodness, they're so difficult to keep alive and make happy, and to have them not constantly run into each other and yell shoo flee every 5 minutes because they can't access a dirty plate that they've decided they really want to clean up. Oh, I love this game. I miss this game. Yeah, but yeah, right now I'm trying to figure out the general like vibe I want for this little living room kitchen setup. I got really inspired by some of the Art Nouveau sets in this game. I always think that like Art Nouveau and elves and fairies is such a fun combo. They have these very like organic shapes, kind of calls to nature. I got really excited about this got really excited about this wallpaper with the columns and lilies. I thought that was so perfect for these fairies. I think I've mentioned this on here, but when I got really back into The Sims as an adult, I was playing it on my Mac, which only runs a super collection, which means I didn't have a lot of the stuff from like Apartment Life or Mansions and Gardens. So I always get really inspired by those new build and buy features. I always just think they're really cool, and I just look for any opportunity to use them as much as possible. I also really liked using these like this Greek key layout on the floor. I knew I wanted to go with that, especially with the kind of warmer wood floors that I seem to be really drawn to. I really like that kind of style. And Greek keys really fit the Summer Dreams in my opinion. I wanted a couple ties back to the fact that the play was set in ancient Greece, which is why you'll see kind of, you know, obviously the columns out back, and then just kind of the use of Greek statues and all that good stuff. That was another big inspiration. So I guess Greece and Art Nouveau are the two more definitive styles of this house, and then also just kind of adding some natural and whimsical touches wherever I can. At one point, I think I tried to conserve the like grape carpet that was in the original build, but it didn't really pan out. It was a little too noisy for where I wanted to go with the flooring, and I just couldn't really make it work. I was actually basing this a little bit off my old Veronaville saves, Summer Dreams house, which I had a lot of fun decorating. That's actually how I got back into playing Veronaville for the first time since I was an adult, was actually looking at all their lots and houses and thinking, oh, these are very gorgeous to start with, or these are very pretty. There's a lot of good inspiration here, but I think I want to try my hand at it and see where we go. And then I just started playing the families, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot how messed up some of these Sims are. This is so fun. All right, so what you're gonna see a lot of in this video is both me saving a billion times, because I did have the game crash exactly once while filming this, and that was enough to freak me out and make me save every 2 minutes. I'm also gonna go back and forth a lot on the layout. I kind of struggled with what would look good for the porch specifically. Definitely kind of went back and forth a lot when it came to the exterior, when it came to like the porch and the back balcony. Wasn't sure if I wanted to use wood or stone. I knew I definitely wanted to use one or the other, because I feel like the Summer Dreams would be all about like natural, earthy material. None of that, nothing synthetic. Obviously they're going to be using stucco on the walls because that's how these Tudor houses were laid out. But everything else, I really wanted to keep it about as down to earth as possible, something perfect for these fairies. Although one thing I did do, and I didn't really notice it until like later, was I made the fences, I believe, out of iron, which if you know anything about fairy mythology, that's a huge no-no, but you know, it looked nice. They had that initially, so I'm not mad about it. But I did get a little laugh at that once I realized what was going on there. And then as for the layout on the back, I decided I wanted to switch up a few things. Their seating area was just kind of big and clunky and honestly a little ugly. So I ended up just kind of going with my own design, really just make it kind of a clustered in seating area. So it almost looks like there is an audience for this stage, which you'll see kind of what I did with the stage part of this house later, or the back porch. It's a little silly, but I think it fits them very well. So we'll get into that in just a bit. All right, so after you build a house, the fun part is, of course, filling it with fun things. So one thing I really wanted was this piano. First, I wanted it in the foyer. I thought that would be just a really beautiful kind of moment of like someone playing the piano while you go down the stairs, but I actually wanted it at a 45-degree angle because I feel like that kind of takes up the space really nicely, and it just wasn't really working for my vision of the foyer, so I moved it to the parlor. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of the only thing you can really do in the parlor, but you know, you are free to place whatever you want in there. Give them like a pinball machine like they had in the original for some reason, but that is neither here nor there. And of course, decorating. Decorating is probably my favorite part of playing The Sims sometimes. I just have a lot of fun doing it, and I love just kind of filling the walls with just about as much stupid stuff as you can imagine. With the Summer Dreams, I put a ton of masks in the area just because I feel like that's such a very perfectly Veronaville thing to do. I also had fun with the lights. I love these like Art Nouveau floral lights that really tie everything together. They feel very fairy-like. You know, you're having little mounted glowing flowers on the walls. It's perfect. So expect to see a lot of that here. I thought that was just such a nice little touch. And of course, we have the flower lamps to go with the flower lights. It's perfect. I love it to pieces. So yeah, had a lot of fun decorating this. Whenever I kind of step away from The Sims, what usually pulls me back in is actually decorating. It's just is such a therapeutic part of this game. Sometimes I'll be taking like walks around my neighborhood and I'll just see a gorgeous house and I think, I could make that in The Sims 2. I could probably not make that in The Sims 2. If you come from other Sims games, you probably are well aware of this, but The Sims 2 building style is it's so clunky. Like, I feel like 3 and 4 are like a fine little chisel. Like, you can really make such a beautiful little marble sculpture out of your houses, where Sims 2 is just kind of like smashing things with a hammer and hoping it fits, but we make it work. There's a billion cheats and everything you can have in the game. So that is, of course, a big limitation for kind of my builds, as well as wanting to not clutter every single corner like I normally do, because I knew that would be such a hassle for gameplay purposes if there was just so much stuff on this lot that was causing so many glitches and lags. But we make it work. I'm trying to get really good at maybe making certain like pockets of the house very kind of cute and cluttered, and having enough of those so it doesn't feel empty, but keeping everything kind of confined to those areas so I don't go overboard. And I feel like this hits a good balance. This is a really big house, so there is a lot of space to work with, but I feel like it did a decent enough job at making sure that it didn't really overtake everything. I love these badger portraits, by the way. I think they're so fun and whimsical. Like I said, that's kind of the main theme of this house, as you'll see, is just whatever I thought was cute and somewhat fit the vibe. It was going in here. The Summer Dreams are such a whimsical, eclectic little family that I really wanted to make that noticeable. At some point I tried this trick where you like layer 2 tables over each other and you can make like a little sunburst, but I don't know if it ended up working out super great. So I ended up just sticking with one, sticking by the chair, and then being like, well, you know what? That it gets the message across. It's not that it's good enough. It's just that it really does speak to my original vision, which you can see changes around a lot, except for the masks. I keep the masks because I love the masks. They are so creepy, but it really fits this the vibe, because that's the other thing as well. I wanted this like cute fairy tale whimsy. Fairies are creepy. Like, we all know this at this point, that like the Fae themselves are just kind of they're very unsettling at times, and I really like leaning into that when I play fairies in The Sims as well. I feel like it's such a good opportunity to make something just kind of unsettling and unnerving, and I'm all about that. So you will see a little bit of that. One thing I love doing, and I think I was so proud of myself, I did this like a couple times, is with the move objects cheat and the wall shifting cheat. I actually put this like Bella Goth portrait that's pretty well known in the game in front of a mounted pair of deer antlers, so she looks more like a fawn or a satyr versus like actually Bella Goth. I feel like that's very perfect for like the summer dreams and of course for their kind of Greek mythology ties. I also put some mushrooms inside the house, especially with these green carpets, which kind of call back to looking like grass. I thought that was kind of a fun little feature. So I really wanted the dining room to seem really beautiful and grandiose in a way as well. I feel like if the Summer Dreams host these like elaborate parties, really wanted that to be kind of a centerpiece. Obviously, you gotta feed your guests, and that's very important. I always like the idea that the Summer Dream house is kind of this neutral ground for the Cap and Monty feud. Well, in theory. In practice, it never really goes that way. Obviously, they get into fights no matter where they are, but it is a, you know, it's supposed to be kind of a little bit of a time where everyone can kind of relax, get kind of caught up in almost like the euphoria of this very enchanted fae environment, and just, you know, maybe not fight each other constantly, but, you know, it's my game, so obviously they will be fighting constantly. That's how it is. It's fun. I love it. And as you can see, I added another sunburst style carpet in this room. I love doing the kind of the fake rugs with the carpets just to really make it add some kind of visual interest. And then of course for the kitchen, I was once again really inspired by this Art Nouveau set. I love these counters. I just think they are perfect for this house, especially with the green countertop. Just really ties everything together, makes it look really nice. From my understanding, Oberon's hobby is cuisine, so I really wanted to give make a really nice kitchen that he can spend a lot of time practicing honing his cooking skills alongside his video editing skills. So that is, you know, very nice. I love a good kitchen. I love decorating kitchens in this game. I love putting a bunch of stuff on the countertops. And I also wanted to add these little like wine bars because it's something your sim with a cuisine hobby can do, and I felt like it's very fitting. This is probably a well-discussed piece of sim lore at this point, but I believe it is somewhat canon that Titania owns a vineyard, or at least there's Titania's vineyard in this game. It's where the like wedding champagne comes from, and I think that's kind of a fun little tie-in. So that's always been kind of one of my personal headcanons, is that at one point, yeah, Titania owned a vineyard, because of course you would. That just seems like something you get up to in your years of immortality as a fairy. But yeah, I always have a lot of fun decorating kitchen counters specifically. I always feel like that's a good space to put a lot of clutter. Oberon and Titania, I think, are both pretty sloppy, so I feel like they would just kind of have a lot of stuff just placed on here at times. And of course, adding curtains, I feel like that really tied everything together. I tried adding diagonal curtains, and I think I ended up just scrapping that because it was a little bit too much of a hassle to figure out. There is, I wouldn't say laziness going on with this build, but there were a lot of moments when I was doing this build where I kind of forgot how to play The Sims because it's been so long, that I feel like if I had another like month to really figure out building styles again and how to really fudge stuff like making diagonal curtains, I would have gone to. But as it was, I was just kind of eager to start playing this game again, start making these videos again, because I realized I miss doing this a lot. I always think about this quote by Defunct Land, where they talk about how much they hate so many stages of the video making process, but the one thing they hate the most is just not making videos. And that's kind of what I was feeling. I was just getting a little, not anxious necessarily, but definitely a little antsy and eager to get back into making Sims videos. And I knew that if I would spend every minute agonizing over every single little detail in this house, this video would never see the light of day. So there's definitely a few things I just kind of let, you know, they bothered me, but I let them slide, and I still think I'm still really happy with the result of this house, so I'm not too mad. And I do not think I will discuss any further stuff I did and then ended up scrapping because I wasn't happy with, because I don't want you to notice that, and I feel like you would if I pointed it out. So we're just gonna pretend with this conversation never happened, you and I. So I guess now is as good a time as always to talk about, Audrey, where have you been, Loca? And yeah, it has been a little bit of a ride from September to now. So I talk about a little bit of what I get up to at this channel, but for the most part, I am kind of a private person. But I did mention that back in May of 2025, I graduated. And I was super happy about that because it took me forever to get through school. One, because I changed my major because initially I wanted to be a computer programmer. And then I realized that with my ADHD, the worst thing I could possibly do to myself is sit at a desk and code all day. I knew that would just completely not be something I would be well equipped for, especially at some point I think I really wanted to be a video game developer, and apparently that is, I can tell from how the industry is going, that seems like one of the worst possible jobs you could ever sign up for, especially if you are like me and a little on the neurodivergent side. So changed my major. This was back in 2018. And then I felt like I was getting a really good handle on things. And then 2020 happened and everyone switched to online, and my unmedicated ADHD self could not really handle that. So I dropped out for a few years and then went back. And once I was back, I was really determined to lock in, really make sure that I get out on time. So I graduated in 2025, which meant there were no jobs. I was an electrical engineer, and in my hubris, I kind of assumed that I would be exempt from this kind of recession we're going through and just our completely abysmal job market. But that was not the case. There were only so many open positions for entry-level electrical engineers in my area, and I did not get any of them at first. I had only one application make it to the interview stage, and I completely flubbed the technical aspect of this interview because I was not expecting it and not prepared for it. And it kind of sent me spiraling a little bit because I was just thinking, what have I done with almost a decade of my life of going to school and not going to school and then going back to school? And I don't know how it is, but if you are a woman or a person of color in this field, I feel like it is very easy to catch imposter syndrome because you constantly are thinking, do I even belong here? If I am not at a good level of competence, am I just going to make every other female engineer look bad? You know, these are not thoughts that I try to nurture and develop with myself, but it seeps into the subconscious and is really nasty. And I think what's plaguing a lot of my further job applications. And even though I was, making it a point every week to send out as many applications as possible, I wasn't getting many bites. And I understood why. It was very competitive at the moment. So this was happening from May to about August. And I was in my unemployment area, which actually was really great for output of videos on this channel, because what else was I doing? Might as well just sit at home and play The Sims all day instead of dealing with how your life is kind of falling apart a little bit. But then August came around and I looked at my savings, and I don't want to talk about how much was in there or wasn't in there, but let's just say the amount of digits went down, and that got really scary because it was the same amount of digits as my monthly rent, for example. But yeah, at that point, it was kind of a wake-up call. It was very much okay, we can't be sitting around being unemployed all day. As much as it would be lovely to finally get a job in that major that I was working towards and now have a degree for, it's very unlikely that the perfect job is going to open up and that someone will even reach out to me and say, hey, I'm a recruiter for this perfect engineering job that I think you would be such a good fit for. Here's your interview. Here's your acceptance letter. Good job, Audrey. You have finally made it in the world. I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I went back to a temp agency, which I've worked at before. It's not the most glamorous line of work, but it keeps the lights on, which is all I needed. And they got me a job at a call center. Now, if you have never done call center work, I am so happy for you. It is somehow incredibly stressful and boring at the same time. If someone is out there as a call center agent and that is just their bread and butter and they love doing that, all power to them. It drove me insane. And more importantly, and more relevant to this channel, it involved me sitting and using my voice for 8.5 hours a day. And that was a hard adjustment. I'm a yapper. I love talking. I love doing it for this channel. I love talking to my friends. I love just saying whatever's on my mind. I talk to myself when I drive. I talk to my cats. I talk to myself just kind of walking around the house sometimes if no one else is here. I love talking. But oh my goodness, doing it for work, for 8.5 hours a day. I was coming home hoarse. I was coming home so burnt out. The work sucked. The traffic on the way home sucked. It was about 45 minutes to an hour. So when I would get home every day, the last freaking thing I wanted to do was make Sims videos. I was so burnt out. And it kind of kept up like that for a few months. Let's see, this would have been August. I think by October, November, I was finally getting in the swing of things. My vocal cords were getting used to being used as much as they were. I was still so bored and understimulated and somehow stressed at work, but I was making it work. I was going on little walks every day, twice a day on my little breaks, listening to audiobooks. That's literally the only thing that kept me sane. But I did not really have the mental capacity to make videos for The Sims 2 at that point. And then once I kind of got a little bit more into the swing of things, everything kind of happened at once. So my main hobby, besides these videos, is cosplaying. That's when you make costumes. You can either make them or buy them. I make them. I really like making my own stuff and sewing and all that fun stuff. I love wig styling. I don't know if you might be able to see them in some of my videos, that there's a couple like wigs behind me at all times. That's kind of my bread and butter. But I hadn't been doing that for a few years because of trying to get back into swing of being a good student, because I knew that if I focused on cosplay for a certain amount of time, that was be all of what consumed my waking day, and I would probably not get as many assignments done as I needed to. So cosplay at that point had been on pause, but there was a convention coming up in my area that happens every like October and November. So I decided I really wanted to get back into the swing of things with sewing. That was going to be kind of my reigniting my creative spark after I'd been in kind of like a little bit of a slump, both with not making Sims videos and not cosplaying, and then being at this job that, once again, was putting food on the table, but was kind of killing me on the inside. So I got really into the cosplay zone. I made 2 different costumes for that, and that kind of took up a lot of my free time because I'm not the most, I'm not the quickest seamstress. It takes me a little bit of time. I like to think it's because I'm so detail-oriented. That would be one of my Sims 3 traits, but in actuality, I'm just kind of a slow sewer. It comes with the ADHD probably. But yeah, that was taking up a lot of my time. And then the morning of the convention, I was getting ready. And for me, whenever I get into cosplay, it takes me just like twice as long to get ready as it does with other people. I don't know what it is. If I'm in a group of people and I wake up and I make a point to like wake up 2 hours earlier than the rest of them, I still will somehow be the last person out the door. I don't know why. I mean, probably is the ADHD is why, but it happens every single time. And while I was getting ready, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, and I thought, well, if it's important, they'll leave a message. And it was important, so I left a message. And that message was, well, you know how I said nobody is going to call me and be like, hey, I'm a recruiter for this dream engineering job that you've wanted since you've since you changed your major. Well, that person, the voicemail I got was essentially saying, hi, I'm a recruiter for dream engineering job, and we think you'd be a good fit. You should give me a call and, set up an interview. And I looked at it and I thought, well, they're not hiring, so this is obviously spam. But I called them back just in case it wasn't actually spam. And, after doing some sussing out, it did actually seem pretty legit. And I thought, well, what's the worst that could happen? As long as I don't, give them incriminating evidence or pay them, because I don't know. One of the fun things about this job market being so terrible is that there are actual recruitment scams right now. And I was so worried that this was one of those, especially since I was just pretty much beaten into the ground this point when it came to my potential career and where I was doing, and if anyone would ever want me again. But it ended up working out that it was a legit position, and they did want me, and I knew there would be a technical interview attached to everything, so I studied my little ass off. Probably more than I actually did during school. And I was like, I am going to know everything there is to know about what you need from me. Here is my experience. Here's how much I know about it. Let me just wow your pants off in the interview. And then I got to the interview and I kind of clammed up, but they liked me enough and they thought I was actually a good fit, and I seemed very down for some of the expectations of this job, which I will get into in a second, because as you may guess where this story's going, I ended up getting that job, which is wonderful. And that means I now work 4 days a week instead of 5, which gives me more free time, and I am not burnt out. I started in January, and now I actually feel like I can be a human being again, which is so lovely. And the fun thing about being a human being is now I can be a human being that makes Sims videos. But while that was happening, so let's see, this would have been back in November. I was doing all this like interviewing process and everything for this. While that was happening, the world was getting worse. I don't think you need me to tell you this in the Sim Speed build. I should not be your main resource of news. But yeah, if you haven't noticed, things are getting a little bad out there. And one thing that was a little relevant to myself was LGBT rights in the United States were getting slowly stripped away, which was not great if you had been engaged to another woman for 2 years and really wanted to get married, but you wanted to wait until you had your perfect job where you could pay for a wedding. Thankfully, the fun little life hack with 2 brides is that, you can kind of go splitsies on all the wedding funds, but that also meant that there's possibly a deadline for getting married, because you don't know what will happen next in this awful little administration we seem to find ourselves in. Oh, it's terrible, but what can you do? Well, actually, yeah, you should be doing stuff. You should be going out there and getting politically involved, because it is probably the most important thing right now. But that also meant that, hey, this wedding that we have kind of planned maybe a few years out, that we want as a kind of like a little fairy tale dream. Yeah, we should really get a move on that. We should really actually plan something out. And even if it is not a perfect wedding, we should get legally married on paper. So they can't take that away from us. And thankfully, it doesn't seem like gay marriage is under threat as we thought it was. At the time, there was talks about like Obergefell getting overruled, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. And even if it was, I know that we live in like a very liberal part of the country, so thankfully our right to be married wouldn't be taken away. But it was a big fear of ours. Also, we wanted the tax benefits of getting married this year, so we decided to plan a little wedding on the solstice that kind of snowballed into a somewhat bigger wedding once our respective family found out about it, and we're like, well, you have to have this at the wedding, you have to have that at the wedding. So it took a lot of time. I don't think I'm really tapping into any new ideas when I say that weddings are a lot of time and money, even kind of a smaller one that was essentially just a house party where we happened to get married. Took a lot of time, so that was my December. But it was such a beautiful little ceremony. I love my wife dearly. If we ended up getting eloped in Vegas dressed up like Elvis, I would have been happy. But what we ended up doing was also just very gorgeous and lovely. It was all winter solstice themed and just absolutely just gorgeous and cozy. Very small still. Only really our immediate family and friends were there, but it was just nice being around this kind of loving little community. We both plan on having a bigger reception at some point down the road, but that will have to wait for a little bit of time. But yeah, that was my December. I was planning a wedding, and then January was getting acclimated to a new job. And so here's the thing about this job, without giving away too much of what I do, because I don't want really to make a lot of that public, it does require a lot of travel. I'm essentially a trainee and probably will be for the next 2 years, which is wonderful for me. I actually prefer it to be that way. Like I mentioned, I have that imposter syndrome with everything concerning engineering. So for a job to be like, you're going to learn everything about how we do things here, how you need to be a good engineer. Once again, I'm just being very vague about what I do, but basically you need to know how to be good so you can set out on your own. And I'm like, thank you. This is exactly what I was looking for. But it does require a lot of traveling. I go to different job sites every week. I usually leave Sunday and then come back Thursday. And it does mean that there is no time for the Sims on the road, which means that it's kind of just, my weekends are kind of going to that, which wouldn't be a problem. I think I've figured out a schedule that really works for me, and it's kind of given me like an extra day where I can just kind of do whatever I want. And what I want is to be making these videos. So I was really happy about this. This was, January, February, kind of getting back into the swing of that. And then, well, I was traveling to one of these job sites. I was about halfway there. It was about a 2-hour drive, and my car broke down on the side of the road. My beautiful little Kia that I have had for about 11 years has decided it had enough. Did not want to be doing all this travel, and I don't really think I blame it. But that left me without a car and having to get my old car towed and scrapped and then find a new car when I still did not have a lot of money. So as you can imagine, that took some time, but that's all sorted out now. And I think I can finally make Sims videos again after all that. Oh boy. And it was one of those things where I didn't feel like I needed to really post like a video saying, oh, hey, I'm gonna be just stepping away for a little bit, everything's okay, because I only really assumed I would just be burnt out for a few months at my terrible little temp job, and then I'd get back into the swing of things. But as you can see, life had other plans. Ah, boy. So what does that look like for the future of this channel, though? We'll talk about this. I definitely am going to still be making Sims videos. I love doing this. I love interacting and engaging with the Sims 2 community. I just think everyone here is so wonderful. Everyone's so creative. Everyone's so collaborative. There's so much support. I honestly have been so blown away by how much support I've been receiving, even as kind of a tiny little channel who's only really made about a dozen videos. I kind of thought I was just kind of throwing these out into the void and letting them sit, and if they have made someone's day, that's kind of what I was going for, especially with how kind of horrific a lot of things are right now. I just wanted to be this little spot of just goofiness and drama that doesn't really impact anyone's real life. Obviously it's Sims drama, so it's the dumbest stuff ever. But I had people tell me how much they love this channel, how much they love that I'm covering Veronaville. I've met some really amazing people who are also just diehard about Veronaville, which is good because Veronaville deserves all the love in the world, in my opinion. And it's really made me miss this space and doing these videos and being kind of in this community as it is. So definitely want to come back. The other elephant in the room was, well, I was also getting super burnt out and depressed. Stuff was happening with EA. I don't think you need me to explain the buyout to you. If you are a Sims person, you obviously know what that's been going on, but it's left me kind of thinking should I even continue this channel? Should I continue making videos for The Sims? Am I in some way promoting an EA product? Because, obviously The Sims 2 Legacy Collection is out, and that's now the most convenient way to acquire this game and play it. And I was worried that by making Sims 2 videos, am I promoting this? And of course I want to just put it out on the table, or I just want to put everything above the table. I do not endorse buying anything from EA. If you want to play The Sims 2, there are other ways you can play The Sims 2 without buying the Sims 2 Legacy Collection. Obviously I'm not going to be dumb and endorse anything illegal, but if it's not your first day on the internet, you probably know what I'm winking and nudging at. But I will say something that is a really good option that I would really recommend if someone is wanting to play The Sims 2 for the first time in 2026 is look for secondhand copies of the discs. They are out there. I actually just looked them up out of curiosity, and I found someone selling The Sims 2 and every single expansion pack for $40 on, I believe it was Depop, which $40 is a lot for a 20-year-old game. I'll admit to that, but you don't have to give your money to EA, and that's really what's important here. So that is my endorsement. Buy The Sims 2 secondhand if you want to play this game. I assume most people who watch these videos are either diehard Sims 2 players, or my friends that I've been hey, you should check out me playing The Sims 2. It's a fun time, and probably don't really have much interest in actually playing the game themselves. But if you are just stumbling across this video or any of my videos and you're wow, The Sims 2 actually looks really fun, I should give it a shot. Once again, I recommend finding a secondhand copy of it and buying it that way. I do not endorse buying anything from EA. And that's kind of all I really wanted to say about that. I am one of those people that's very critical of EA and the Sims team and The Sims 4. Not really a fan of a lot of the things they have done with this franchise. And it's such a bummer because this franchise, this game means a lot to me, The Sims 2 does. But I don't really want to harp on it too much. and I've tried never to really harp on it too much on this channel because I know it is so easy to garner an audience if all you produce is negativity. And there are definitely a lot of people that seem to be really chomping at the bit for anything negative about The Sims 4 or about the Sims team or about EA. And while I do not always hold them in high opinions, I don't want to gather that audience, if that makes sense. And I know people who play The Sims 4 and really love it, and I can see why they would love it. You know, I struggled with a roof for about 20 minutes in this speed build alone, and that's not something you have to worry about as much in The Sims 4, for example. So, you know, I get the appeal. Even if it's not for me, you probably will never see me play Sims 4 on this channel. And I actually have a lot of admiration for people who make YouTube videos about The Sims 4, and then after this buyout decided to stop promoting new content from EA, would like leave the EA Creator Network if they were involved in it. And I kind of want to be the same way. I don't want to talk about anything new that EA releases, which includes Sims 4 expansion pack. So if you were wondering what my hot takes were on them adding Veronaville Sims to the most recent Sims 4 expansion packs, I don't care. I don't like it. It's always a mess whenever they try to add Sims to the Sims 4. But in this case, I'm just like, this isn't canon. You won't see me, name the Summer Dreams kids Mara, because I think that's a stupid decision. Anyway, okay, we could get into that. I'm not going to. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with my opinions on The Sims. That was also kind of a reason I stepped away a little bit, was I was just feeling a little, like, icky, I think, just being so associated with The Sims while EA was changing ownership and being owned by some really, really terrible people that were actively making a lot of people's lives worse. So it sucks. Anyway, okay, like I said, I don't want to harp too much on that. So what does that look like for future videos though? Well, first of all, I will make them. I promise I'm not going anywhere. And then I really hope that the next video I make will not be 6 months later. There's going to be a little bit of a pause probably between this and my next video, both because I want to still get in the swing of things of live recordings. I do have another anime convention coming up on Easter weekend, so I will be gone for that. And then I will also be gone the following weekend. It's my birthday weekend, and I'm actually going to be kind of taking a nice little vacation. And then after that, I should hopefully be back in the swing of things. I'm also moving, so definitely output's going to be very slow. I mentioned that my job requires a lot of traveling, so I'm not physically at my home and computer a lot, but I've actually kind of been looking into using some of my tax return this year to buy a gaming laptop, especially since I've wanted a gaming laptop for a while, and with the cost of RAM going up, this probably is the best time to do so. So I think I might just start filming in my like little hotel rooms after work. And I also just love the idea of taking these little goobers on the road with me. So that might be the case. That might be what happens. In which case I probably wouldn't do face cams because I don't want to haul around a webcam and a lighting setup and all that good stuff. So you might just hear my voice instead of seeing my face for a while, but it will be there. And I still want to make Veronaville videos because I freaking love Veronaville, and I'm very invested in this neighborhood. I think about these Sims when I'm not playing them, for example. I'm like that level of crazy and invested, and every time I get a comment, that's people they're both responding to things that happen in this video, and then they're calling back the things that happened in earlier videos, and they're kind of right there with me, getting into the mentality of these characters, these little pixel guys. I love that. I'm kind of obsessed with the fact that I'm so taken in by these characters, and that other people seem to also be that way. So I definitely am not going anywhere when it comes to making Veronaville stuff. As far as the longevity of the series itself, I've been, structuring everything into acts. Right now we're on Act 2, and I want to at least go until I'm on Act 5. And I want to at least go for 5 acts and then reach kind of a little conclusion, kind of really fitting the Shakespearean 5-act format. And that's, if I ever have a loose plot with these Let's Plays, that's kind of what I'm following. We're on Act 2, which is like the rising action, quote unquote. But that's the plan there. Even if it takes me a while to output these videos, I'm probably going to be maybe in my retirement home being like, will Romeo and Juliet get their happy ending? But I promise I will never not stop working on Veronaville videos, at least until I hit that milestone. Okay, we good there? We good there? I've come back from the store with my milk and cigarettes, and I actually did leave for milk and cigarettes. It just took me 6 months. I'm like Odysseus, but not played by Matt Damon, hopefully. Oh, yeah, anyway, that's been me. That's been my life update. Oh boy. What else? Got really into books. Books are fun. I had mentioned I go listening to my little audiobooks while I go on my little walks at work. That's been a huge thing. And now that I'm kind of driving all around the country, audiobooks have been my best little travel companion. So really love that. I forgot how much I love reading. Being a STEM major doesn't really give you a lot of room for reading things that are not like technical manuals. So it's been fun kind of rediscovering that passion of mine. You know, I'm playing Veronaville, for God's sakes. You must know I'm at least on some level a little bit of a literature nerd, and that is definitely catching up there. I love reading horror. I think Shirley Jackson is like probably one of my favorite writers now. Everyone talks about The Lottery, obviously, but you know, her Haunting of Hill House is of course a classic. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Fantastic. Oh my God, I understand why that's her magnum opus. I am obsessed with the character Mary Cat. She is just so cool, such a cool little freaky, creepy girl. Kind of the archetype, the proto Wednesday Addams. Obsessed with that book. It's great. What else have I been reading? Oh, The Secret History. I know that's kind of like a popular on social media, literally started a dark academia movement. I was worried when I started it that I would think it was super overrated. It is not. Oh my goodness. I was just completely entranced with that story, with those characters, with all the crazy shenanigans they got up to. I thought it was going to be 600 pages of these losers sitting around drinking wine and speaking Greek at each other. Oh my God. No, they are doing insane things to each other in the woods. It's phenomenal. I'm saying this now because this was actually a little bit of my inspiration for both how I want to play the Summer Dreams, and then definitely if I want to once we get to university, there might be some influence kind of poking through some of the stuff here. One thing in The Secret History, and this is like a pseudo spoiler, so maybe skip ahead a few minutes, but it's not anything really big, is that they are so obsessed with like ancient Greek culture and society that they end up throwing these like rituals called bacchanals, which are these rituals kind of dedicated to Dionysus and are all about revelry and hedonism. And I feel like that's something I could work really well into the Summer Dreams. Not to that extent, because you do some crazy things during bacchanal that you could not probably do in this game. But you know, that's definitely kind of my vision of the Summer Dreams. When I talk about them being party people, I'm thinking kind of ancient Greek. That kind of pops up a little bit. That might be a little bit of where I draw some inspiration from. But mainly anyone who knows me knows I'm just kind of obsessed with this book right now. So that's going to be fun. And then definitely when I go to university, I kind of looked ahead at like which of my teen sims are going to be going to university this round. And I feel like it's going to be a very fun mix. So don't be surprised if a little bit of Secret History inspiration kind of bleeds through to that as well. You know, I would feel a little bad about being so indulgent, but literally this is Veronaville. This is taking inspiration from literature. So don't be surprised if things I read kind of seep into that as well. What else have I been reading that's really good? Oh, the Villain series by V.E. Schwab. The first one's called Vicious. The second one's called Vengeful. They're about a guy named Victor Vale. A lot of V names. It's very fun. They're basically about supervillains and kind of what makes a supervillain, about this very toxic dynamic in college that just kind of fell apart, and now these two characters are trying to kill each other 10 years later. It's a great read. So that's my book recommendations. Right now I'm also reading The Book of Blood and Roses, which is about a vampire college and a vampire hunter that infiltrated that. But then she meets this gorgeous butch vampire that's her roommate, and oh no, there's simmering tension there, even though she hates all vampires and wants to kill them all. It's great. I'm loving this book so far. Yeah, that's reading recommendations with Audrey. But like I said, stuff I read might kind of seep into this Let's Play at points because, you know, it's Veronaville. We're inspired by literature here. We are cultured, we are educated, we are reading our books all that good stuff. So maybe expect a little bit of that. But honestly, last time I played Veronaville, I was doing the same thing. I was just making townies based off of characters from other stories. And that was honestly some of the most fun I've ever had playing The Sims. I've made a entire family of the Bennetts from Pride and Prejudice, which is a family of like 5 daughters, and of course the plot of Pride and Prejudice. Wow. And the plot of Pride and Prejudice is how will these girls get married into good standing so they can kind of keep their family afloat. And in my Veronaville, since I randomized gender preference, all 5 girls ended up being lesbians, which was so fun. I ended up making like a butch Mr. Darcy, and playing a story out that way, and that was a fun time. That was like my side story going on in Veronaville. Oh, good times. Yeah, I feel like one day I'll talk about my old Veronaville save, but I am keeping some things hush because I might start working some plot points from that into this current Veronaville game, but we'll see where that kind of takes us. Okay, and so I should probably talk about the actual decorating of the house itself. I'll start with the bedrooms. Oberon's was kind of the hardest for me to really nail down. I feel like sometimes I have a hard time figuring Oberon out at the start of these games. And I just kind of wait for him to tell me who he wants to be. He's only one of the only few knowledge sims in Veronaville, with the other being Kent Cap. And now I've also changed Hermia to being a knowledge sim. He can get up to some fun shenanigans. Knowledge sims are such a delight in this game. Definitely what I would be if I was in The Sims, both because I am a little nerd that loves to learn, and also because I would also jump at the chance to be like a werewolf or vampire if I figured out they were real. Last time I played this game, Oberon, while being a fairy, also ran like a whole werewolf pack. I think now, since I made the Cap kids witches, he saw that and is like, I want to be that too. So that might be something he ends up doing. I mean, fairies in my game are basically superpowered witches anyway, so that's something that might come to it. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. I gave him a desk with a computer so he can focus on his home video editing, his true passion, while he neglects his wife and family for. Oh boy. I think I at some point tried to give him an alarm clock, then I realized that the Summerdreams don't care about that. So no alarm clocks in this household. Nobody seems to be particularly punctual. But yeah, that was the main thing, is I wanted a little bit of a study area. I like having that for my knowledge sims or career focused sims in general, and since he does video editing, he needed a computer. Next up was the pink room, which is going to be for Bottom, and while doing this, I remembered that her hobby was music and dance, hence some of the ballet features I added. I love Bottom as a sim. Like, an unfortunate name aside, she is just one of the best sims in Veronaville, in my opinion. She just grows up to be so cool. She's always so outgoing. Her hobby's music and dance. At some point, she becomes the sim that slaps other sims when you use the telescope. She usually ends up being popularity or pleasure in my games, and it just fits her so well. She just has such a fun little personality, so I'm very excited to see kind of what she grows up to in this playthrough. I always just have such a fun time playing her, especially when she gets older and you kind of have her do more, and I really love her room. I always love decorating super girly rooms in this game. I don't know what it is, because I'm not a very girly person myself. It's just, you can really go all out and indulgent, and I think this might be a little more feminine than how I view Bottom, but for what I'm going for, I think it worked really well. Next up is Puck, and Puck was kind of hard to nail down a little bit. For some reason I feel like, I guess I just understand like the female sims of this household more, which I say this, but something I always do with my gameplays is I do play Puck as non-binary. I think it's because the character Puck in Shakespearean plays is oftentimes played by a woman and is sometimes left to be a little bit gender ambiguous. They're a little like Ariel in The Tempest, who I also sometimes have grow up and be non-binary, but that's something I usually do with Puck. I think I might do something a little bit different with him this time around, which we'll get into once I actually start playing. I think it would be really cool to maybe have Puck be a trans woman this time around. Some reason I'm really feeling that energy, but we'll see kind of how things shake out a little bit. But as for Puck's interests, I know their hobby is tinkering, which I've kind of added a couple little different gadgets and toys around. I added the little Gundam. I'm always kind of obsessed with like the Gundam in this game. And then just a couple other little things that I felt really fit them. Also still want to make them a little bit whimsical. It's interesting because I see Puck as like a very whimsical person, kind of based off of their like Shakespearean counterpart, but I know in the game they're very like shy and serious. So I feel like playing them, I always kind of try to like strike a really good balance. And yeah, I also know they are very into sci-fi and tinkering. I think it'd be kind of interesting to give them like a knowledge secondary when it comes to their secondary aspirations, but we'll see kind of how that shakes out as well. Yeah, I also added a little couch. I like the idea of them having like, you know, all their friends kind of come up to their room and hang out as well. I thought that would be kind of a cute little spot to do so. And yeah, that is Puck in a nutshell. I don't really have a lot to say about them. I know we got some real like Puck heads in the audience, I guess, but who probably really understand the character a little more thorough than I did, but at least on some level, this is kind of the vibe I really wanted to go for with them. Yeah, I love this green and this kind of, not fuchsia, kind of burgundy together. I thought that looked really nice, so I ended up going with that as well. I just thought it was a really good little mashup, and I kind of tried to strike a good balance between like this kind of nerdy, angsty, sensitive teenager that I see Puck as, and then just also still adding that little bit of mischief and whimsy as well. I don't know, it's a very hard balance to strike, but I feel like I'm happy with what I got. And then last up, I have Titania's room. It's going to probably be shared by Titania and Oberon in my playthrough, like I mentioned, so I wanted to really give them like a really nice master bathroom. The one thing I'm not thrilled about with this house is that I didn't add like a guest bathroom upstairs. Puck and Bottom will probably have to use, you know, Oberon's or Titania's bathroom if they want to go upstairs or downstairs, which is of course why I added like a little shower as well. But anyway, enough of that. I tried to fit a couple things in. I know Titania really has art as a hobby, so I wanted to kind of pay a little bit of a nod to that. I ended up going with a pottery wheel. I see her either as being really into sewing and making these like fun costumes, maybe a little bit of projecting. Like I said, I like making costumes, so that's would shine through a little bit with her, or pottery. And since I was putting so many potted plants in this house, I figured pottery would actually be a really good fit for her. So ended up giving her a little wheel where she can do her little activities if she so chooses to, and then just kind of making everything fun, very floral, very like, you know, classy, whimsical, very much fitting for our Queen of Fairies. I love this like little butterfly set. I always think that's just really beautiful, and I think that's such a good fit for this family. And of course, a lot of plants. That's the main theme of this household, is just so many plants. I really want this just to feel like the forest has just kind of creeped up into the house itself. One of my favorite books as a kid, and I'm struggling to remember the title. And if anyone knows, please let me know, because I constantly think about this book. It's about this boy who like brings a salamander into his house, and then he starts changing his room to fit more like the forest for what the salamander needs. It's a little like if you give a mouse a cookie, but just the visuals of that has always kind of stuck with me. He ends up taking out the roof of his house so trees can grow in it and everything. And that's kind of my vision for both like the Summerdream house, also the Green Men house from River Blossom Hills, although I have to admit I don't play that one as often. I gave it a shot back in the day and I was not super inspired by it, I'll be honest. And speaking of like River Blossom Hills, that's something I was also thinking about, is if at some point, you know, like I mentioned, I want to be doing Veronaville for at least 5 rounds. That's the goal there. But if at some point I'd need like a little bit of a break from Veronaville, I was kind of thinking about like, what else could I do that's still relevant to this channel? Do I want to play other games that aren't The Sims? Do I want to play other Sims games? Do I want to play other Sims neighborhoods? And I have a couple ideas in mind. I think it would be really fun to play like those old school style point and click games if I just kind of want a break from The Sims a little bit, which sometimes I do. I love this game, but sometimes I like playing things that are not The Sims. And I was kind of thinking about what are some other games that are like tangential to The Sims, you know, but not really the same thing. I don't play a ton of cozy games, which I know is kind of how a lot of people kind of pivot when they don't want to be playing Sim stuff, but want to have still kind of like a similar audience. And yeah, I was thinking about like what would be some other fun games to play. And some reason I thought like playing old like 80s or 90s point and click games would be so fun. I really want to play the Elvira game. I feel like that would just be a good time on this channel. Maybe that's something I do for this Halloween. Who knows? I also, this is such a random pick, but I went to a bar the other day and the bartender, you know, had to scan something to prove my ID to prove I was over 21, and then apparently got prompted with questions that were supposed to quiz me, just to make sure I was legally the age I actually am, or that says it is on my ID. And it got me thinking about the game Leisure Suit Larry. If you've never heard of that game, it's very adult, and it starts out every game with like a quiz that only adults would know. Unfortunately, this game came out during the 80s. So like, it's for people who are like 45, only they would know some of these answers, but it's fun. It is a fun time. It would be such a different change from The Sims, which can get a little raunchy, but definitely not to that level. But for some reason I thought that would be kind of a fun one to play, but I don't know. As for other Sims stuff, if I do kind of like a not Veronaville Sims thing, I've been really thinking about doing Belladonna Cove. I feel like that neighborhood is really, really underrated. I only really started playing Desdorada Valley and Belladonna Cove recently because of, I didn't have the Ultimate Collection for a while. And I found that I'm unfortunately not a Desdorada Valley girly. I gave it a shot. I was very bored with it very quickly. I think the fact that the Sims only like storylines are their hobbies it was not thrilling. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be not like other girls and be like, oh my god, I love Desdorada Valley. You people are crazy. This is the most underrated hood in the neighborhood or in this game. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I was so bored. I was so angry at some of the Sims storylines. Belladonna Cove, on the other hand, I'm still angry at some of those storylines. I think a lot of the stuff going on with like Armand and Jessica Peterson, for example, is kind of BS, but I feel like it would be a very fun neighborhood. There's so many Sims in that neighborhood because it's, a giant city as opposed to like a little suburb, which is kind of what appealed to me more than like, playing Pleasant View for the 700th time and being in the suburbs and finding out who is Don Lothario going to sleep with this time around. I actually thought that, this would be kind of an interesting little change of pace. So maybe I do like a little... Anytime I need a break from Veronaville, maybe I'd start up a little bit of a Belladonna Cove, kind of get into like the lore of those Sims. I definitely agree that the expansion pack neighborhoods aren't as detailed as the base game neighborhoods, but it's got some interesting stuff going on. Some of it is just a knockoff of Pleasant View, but that's okay. That's okay. We're still fans here. Still love that. So that's something I might end up doing if I just need a break from Veronaville, but I don't know. If you guys, let me know what you guys think. I feel like there's not, there's like a handful of Veronaville Let's Plays, and I feel like there's like 1 or 2 Belladonna Cove Let's Plays, so it'd be kind of interesting to really branch out into that little area, but we'll see. Right now, I do want to focus on Veronaville again. I miss these little goobers so much. I miss their stupid little antics. I miss them getting into fights all the freaking time. I missed seeing if they were going to die from those fights. I miss actually killing a Sim off. As weird as that sounds, I feel like, and I don't want to give too much away about my Let's Play if you have not seen it. I highly recommend you do go watch it. But definitely some stuff that happened at the start of this second round still has me shook to this day. I was rewatching a few things and I was just like, oh god, I need to get back into this. This is so fun. So yeah, I will be returning, I promise. That is my promise to you. But yeah, back to the build. I had a lot of fun doing the interior or exterior landscaping. I feel like there's just so many fun little... Once again, I am trying to avoid as much custom content as possible. So if my plants look different, that is because I am using tree defaults by T. Vicky Sims, I believe. I think they are from Sims 4 assets, so they're very big. That's my only real hesitation, is the scale of some of them's a little different. You can see a little bit later I pull out like plumerias, or not plumerias. The plumerias are huge though. Oh my god, the plumerias situation in this game is insane now. But my hibiscus plants, those can get a little big, but I like how they look. One thing I'm really happy with when it comes to this build is the little wedding venue I built off to the side. I love the like stone arches I added, love actually using the stuff from like the Sims wedding pack. It's a beautiful little pack. One thing I love about Sims 2, and this is the last little dig I'll make, is I love that Sims 2 has functional weddings. Other Sims games can't say the same. That's all I'm gonna say. but it's so gorgeous. I really like how it turned out. I already have Oberon and Titania married in my Let's Play. I am almost ready to divorce them and have them get remarried just so we can make a good use of this wedding venue. It would fit with them. I feel like they're just constantly getting married and breaking up, in my opinion. And it would be fun for them to throw like an actual adult wedding party. You know, now that I'm thinking about that, that's literally like what I was talking about I want to do with my wife and I, is throw like a small little legally getting married thing, and then we'll have a big grand reception later. Maybe I'll make the Summer Dreams do that. That might be kind of fun. One thing I added, and it's so stupid, but I felt like I really wanted to do this, is I made a little DJ booth. I wasn't really sure what to put on the porch, and then I remembered that Titania is a party DJ. That's her profession. So I added that there so Titania can party away to our heart's content. There's a little outdoor bar and some more outdoor seating area. I feel like this would be a great time. We'll see how this actually plays out in when the Summer Dreams throw parties, if it goes off as planned, but I love it. I'm really happy with how this little area turned out. So hopefully if you download this in your game, your Sims can make a good use of it. But yeah, no, I love this. It's so silly. It's so them though. It's silly because it is them. This is a silly game, and the Summer Dreams are kind of one of the sillier Sims, so happy with that. And then after the wedding arch, I also added a little pond. It was time for landscaping, and they have a little pond at the beginning, but I actually wanted a more organic shape than like the square they had. And I put some nice little reeds and plants right by the edge of the water. And then in the original game, they do have a hot tub. And I was torn between including the hot tub or that like spring that comes with, I think it's Bon Voyage, where it's like a little hot spring that you can sit in. I almost added that because I thought that's lovely. And hot springs are really good for having your Sim socialize, but hot tubs are good for woohoo. And I feel like that won out in the end. So I had a little hot tub. It's hidden in the trees, so my Sims can have some privacy, which is going to lead to probably some of the worst cutscenes in the game every time they woohoo, and it just focuses on the trees, but maybe that's for the best. And then on the other side, also hidden in a nice little secluded area, is a bubble blower. I felt like that also would be something that these Sims would get really into as well. I have an actual alcohol mod, which makes, my Sims act drunk whenever they want to be. I feel like I want to try to find one for the bubble blower, something to make them chill out. I feel like the Veronaville Sims need to chill out a lot. And so did the Berry and Europa Sims that I play with as well. Everyone in this neighborhood is so high drama that we need just a little bit of a break, a little bit of time that they can all just kind of hide away, not really be constantly trying to like bash each other's faces in. I don't know. But yeah, I would love blowing bubbles here. I don't know. How about you guys? Okay, that's enough of that. Sorry, this video is an hour and a half long. I've gotten into silly hours, and my voice is kind of going. I think at some point, yeah, I also entertained the idea of doing a little tea table. Ended up not happening, but I kind of want to add one at some point, maybe just in the center. But we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, lovely little statues everywhere. If I can't put as many plants as I want because of the fear of immense lag, I will be putting a bunch of statues everywhere. You can bet on that. And so I did. One thing I'm really proud of, and it took me a little bit of time, but I'm happy with how it turned out, is I made a little fairy ring, a little ring of mushrooms over by the bubble blower. Felt like it just really fits the vibe. Because, I mean, why would you have fairies if you didn't have a little fairy ring? So I enjoy that a lot. I don't think my Sims can actually step into it, but I know it's there, and it's gorgeous, and I'm happy with it, and so it stays. Also added some stone henges because why not? I just wanted to just throw a bunch of weird things into this garden that I felt like would really fit the theme of the Summer Dreams. So here's to all these little statues I've placed around the place. I think I kept trying to make that gargoyle work. It didn't end up working in the end, but that's okay. It's custom content, and I don't really want to include as much custom content as I want to avoid as much custom content as I can for this game, so I just didn't really want that to be an issue for people, so it is not there. As much as I love that stupid gargoyle, I might include the gargoyle at some point. Like I said, I'm trying to make this look as nice and as both clean but interesting as possible. That way other people can play it and customize it to their heart's content, or at least use it as inspiration. But once I get my hands on this for my personal playthrough, I might just get a little crazy with it. So if I load up the Summerdream house in my Let's Play and it looks completely different from this, you know what's up. You know what I ended up doing. But as it is, I'm really happy with how this house turned out. I think it's just perfectly encapsulates kind of what I was going for, with the limitations I mentioned earlier of wanting to make this friendly for my videos. Now watch me play that, watch me say that, and then this entire house turns to pink soup the second I open it for my Let's Play, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I will be playtesting this, of course, making sure that my Sims can get around without any issues, and, you know, it's built in a clean neighborhood. This is actually just a completely blank neighborhood. Never has had a sim enter it, so there should be no character files, and of course I use a lot cleaner. So everything good there. It's all good to download. Really like making sure that what I make can be enjoyed by other people. That's, like I mentioned, one of the fun things about this Sims 2 community is how like collaborative and supportive it is, and I always want to give back as much as I can with whatever I do. And then, of course, added some finishing touches. I completely forgot about ceilings at some point. Like I said, I used to play Super Collection. We didn't have to worry about ceilings, but they definitely really add another little element to these builds, so I'm happy they're there. I think they really make those like panoramic shots really beautiful. And when I was taking like my final little preview shots for this house, I was so happy they were there. They really just kind of tied everything together. And then I also added ivy, which if I had my way, this entire house would be covered in ivy. I feel like that is the vibe I wanted to go for. But I do know that ivy while I'm filming can sometimes get in the way and be super annoying and block my Sims' faces. And I sometimes am not having such a fun time with it that I had to kind of cut back on it, as well as, you know, the graphical limitations I was talking about earlier. But I still decided to break that rule a little bit, my known ivy rule, and just go a little bit. But I tried to add as much as I could that still looked nice and went for the vibe I was going for. But I ended up adding a bunch of ivy anyway because I love this stuff. I just think it's so cool. I love like shifting it, moving it around, making it look like it's just completely taking over this house, making a bunch of fun little organic shapes with it, really just making it kind of creep up the entire side of the house. And I think it just adds such a lovely touch to this very natural looking, nature inspired house. And I really think it just adds such a lovely natural touch to this house. I love how it came out, even if installing it is a little bit of a pain. As you can see, at one point I added some, even if it is a little bit of a pain, I had to add some flooring to it, for example, just to really make sure that it was actually going where I wanted it to go and not floating. That was the problem with having this with move objects on, but oh man, I'm looking at it now as I'm doing my voiceover, and it is so beautiful. It's moving me to tears. As you can see, I'm choking up. No, I've just been talking for like 2 hours straight, and that's been going crazy. See why I wasn't thriving at the call center? Can you imagine watching every video and I start out sounding like this? You would click off immediately. Don't act like you wouldn't. You'd be like, who is this hag? Why is she telling me these things? Why does she have a little froggy in her throat? Get that frog out of her throat. Anyway, you know, I said this one's gonna be chatty. I said we had a lot to catch up on, and I meant it. But yeah, I'm gonna give my voice a break. Enjoy its beautiful piano voiceover music or whatever backing track I decide to add to this video. And I'll see you at the end. Alright, and here we are. Here's the Summerdream Manor in its entirety, and a couple of beautiful little snapshots I've added at the end. Like I said, this will be up for download. I'm making sure everything is nice and clean, and then I'll be putting it on my Tumblr, as well as my other lots I've renovated, which you can check out, of course, on my channel. If you want to see more of my sim stuff, I of course do have a Veronaville Let's Play. It might be a little bit of time before this lot actually comes into play, but when it is, you'll know how I got here. Alright, that is everything from me. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I hope you are doing well. Take care now. Bye-bye.